Alright, so we're going to start the recording at the dashboard, which you're pretty familiar with, but I'm going to show you the structure of the inner pages as I change the home page back to what we talked about before, so that you can understand the structure and how it's put together whenever you're editing any other pages, and you can understand all the individual elements. So I'm going to go to the home page, and again I always like to go to the navigate through the site to the page I want to edit, and then come right up here and use the edit tool at the top bar. So I'll click edit with Cornerstone, which is what most of your pages are going to be built with. Now I'm actually going to go back a second to remind you something that I mentioned during the initial training. There are two types of page builders. So there's the normal page builder, where you put everything directly in the body. And then there's Cornerstone that has the individual elements. So whichever element was used to create that page, you have to continue using that, and you cannot switch back and forth between the editors. So an easy way to figure out what was used to build that page. Most of them were used for Cornerstone, but if it was something with simple content, it might have been used for this visual part. So once you open up the actual page editor, you'll see it pops up here and shows edit with Cornerstone. So that means that that page was put together with Cornerstone. If you open up a page and this visual tab is clicked, then that means it was built just using the simple page builder that comes with WordPress. So if you ever decided, so this one was built with Cornerstone, you wanted to switch over to visual, it'll give you this message here that tells you that you're about to make changes to the content, and they will not be reflected in Cornerstone. So it does give you a little warning. So if you get that warning, just make sure you hit no, take me back, and then use the proper editor. So we'll hit edit with Cornerstone. Alright. So as I showed before, you can see that basically as you scroll over each individual element, it will become highlighted. So this is a text element. It'll tell you right here in the box, the top left. This is a custom headline, and this is a gap. So we just use that to create a little bit of separation from that the title headline and the content, as well as this to create a little separation between the content and the video here. So these are just blank columns that we use to center the video. So it's right in the center of the page. And each of these areas is going to be broken down into a section. So if you look here, these are going to be the individual tabs that show, when you scroll over them, which section is what. So you see this is clearly the welcome section. And if you want to get back to the sections, you know, say you click one of the elements and you can't find your way back, they have a little breadcrumb trail here that you can click to go back to the settings for that particular section, or you can go here and this will just get you back to the very starting point of the layout. So within a section, so going back to this welcome section, there's one section, and within the section there are rows and columns. So once I click this section, it'll break it down and show me that there are two rows. Here's row 1 and here's row 2. So the reason we use rows within the sections is because different rows will need different amounts of columns. So as you can see, this row, row 1, as you can see here where it says column layout, it'll show you the different options for how many columns will be in that particular row. And if we so you can see this one's 1. If you switch over to row 2, you can see I created a custom one, which you'll see the math for here. But typically you'll just be choosing one of these. These are pretty standard. You have separating the 3 and halves, and then a couple different others that you can use. So if you ever wanted to add a new row within a section, you have your add row button here. You can add that. You can see it creates a nice blank spot for you to put your elements, and then from there you can choose how many columns you want to be in that row. So depending on what you're going to want that row is going to be, that's going to depend on which amount of columns you choose. So if you want, obviously if you want the left half being a picture and the right half being some text or some other type of element, then you click the halves, and you'll see actually that was was the wrong row. So go back to manage layout. All right, so row 3, you can see if I choose 2, then it will create 2 different elements. So how you would add some content or any of the pictures or text or anything that you want to drop into here, you'll use this little button, or you can click the actual column, and that'll bring up the details for the column if you want to change the backgrounds or anything, but most likely you'll be changing that within the row. So you can hit this little square up here, the little cube, and it'll bring up all your elements. So you can scroll through and see all the individual elements. There are a lot of advanced elements and a lot of simple elements. And you can search. So for text, if you're just adding some text, you'll see that pops up right here. And you can drag and drop that to whichever column that you wanted the text to be placed in. And once you have the text selected, it brings up this box that is pretty much exactly the same as the visual text editor that you would use within the events page, the blog page, or the regular editor when you're editing a page. So I always like to hit expand. Remember, switch over to visual. And you have all your tools here, and you can paste or type your content directly in there. Okay. So if you wanted to add an image, again, you have this image button here that'll bring up your library file. You can select your image, insert it there, and if the size isn't right, or if you want to align it in the center or change anything about it, then you just select it and use this edit pencil, and that'll open up all your tools. And you can change the size here from one of the standard settings or a custom size. So I'll X this out. So you can see everything is shown live. So you can see exactly the changes you're making as you're making them. Now obviously we don't want to keep any of these changes, so I'm going to refresh this page before I go back to rearranging the page to how it was previously. And it's going to give you a little notification that says you haven't saved anything. Normally you want to make sure that you save that, but in this instance I'll leave it. So it should reload and everything should go back to how it was when we first opened up. Yep, and it did. Perfect. So we will want to bring the art history down here to the testimonial section. So the first thing I'll do is highlight this section and make sure I'm highlighting the whole section, not just the element or the column. Go to manage layout, and then this will be the row here. So we're going to want this row, the way it was set up before was 2 equal halves. So we had the about the church on the left, and then we had the testimonials on the right. So I'll do that. And by default, whatever is in the field, if you add another section, goes to the right. So I'll just have to drag these over here, and everything's drag and drop. So I'll take these, and it'll show you where it's going to drop it. Perfect. So then I'll take the art history and scroll down until I get to the second one. And it does readjust the size, so you'll see it kind of makes it jump down the screen and scroll a little bit, so you just have to scroll back up to see it. So then I will take the text, add it to the same area. That's there. And then the join us button. And I will, and drop that right below there. And we're back to normal. So you can see that's how it was set up previously. And if you did decide that you don't want the image there, again, just select on the text, go over to visual here. You can click on that and then just X right out of it and remove the image. Right. So I believe that is exactly how it was set up before. and I will save this. So you're always going to make sure you save with the customizer. You'll see the save button here. Again, if you try to X out or leave, it'll give you a notification. So you see when I open this little home button gives me an option to go back to the actual page editor that you can edit the title, the settings, publish date, and things like that with, or you can just view the page to see what it looks like. But it always gives you a little notification up here if things weren't saved properly. So always hit save. It'll give you a little loading, and then it'll give you a nice fun message letting you know that it was successfully saved. So at that point we can go ahead and view the page. And we can see that the section was created. So everything was good, and that's back to normal. Okay, so let's see. The next thing I'll do from here is, since we've already been messing with the home page a little bit, I'll go ahead and show you how to change out the picture in this slider here. So I know I gave the dimensions of the slider image in the meeting, or in our last training, and it was 1440 by 600. So that's going to be the dimensions that you want the photo cropped in when you're adding that into the slider, so that it fits properly and doesn't leave any gaps on the top, bottom, or the sides. And it comes with a nice clean image like this. You'll want to use high quality images, so pictures taken with good cameras, and not, if you went and searched for Google and just wanted to use a picture that you liked on here, you'll have to look at the dimension sizes to make sure that it shows up and the actual pixels are big enough to expand all the way across the screen. So typically you're going to want the quality of the photo to be at least 1200 pixels wide, and then just the dimensions need to be that 1640 by I believe it was 400 that we talked about. Okay, so from there what we'll do, the slider is an individual plugin itself, so that's not something that you update from the actual home page, so we won't be using Cornerstone or the edit page button. We're going to go back to the dashboard. If you scroll down here, you'll see Revolution Slider, and that's where we're going to go to make any edits to the slider or the slides themselves. Alright, so you'll see it gives you a little list here of the sliders that you do have. So the ministry slider is the slider that we have set up on the ministry page that shows some of the members. And then the UBC one, number 1 here, is the main slider. So you can go to the settings page if you want to change anything about the slider. However, typically that's the settings on that are a little more advanced. So you have a lot of different options here, but this is already pretty much set up. So the only thing you may want to change, if you ever decide to, is the speed of the slider. So if you wanted it to slide a little bit faster, you take this number here under delay, and you would just reduce that to maybe to 7,000 or so, and preview it until it looked like that it was the speed that you're happy with. Everything else pretty much going to stay the same. It's more for advanced settings, being that the slider is capable of doing a lot more, having animations, things like that. From there, you can either hit Edit Slides from here, or just to go back to this page, you can hit it directly from the menu and hit Edit Slides. Alright, so this is going to show you, these are the 2 images that we currently have in the slider. So what I always like best is to just go ahead and do Edit Slide on the last picture. And you'll see here at the top you have a tab for each slide, as well as a tab to add a slide. So if you wanted to change a current slide, maybe you wanted to update this picture with something from a more recent service, then this is where the source is. So this is the image that shows up here in the slide. So you would click Change Image, and it's going to bring up your library. Just consistently with any other page or anything you're using, you're always going to see the same library. So you can go in here and select your image, or you can upload the file that you want to use. and I would, to preview it, you're usually going to use either cover or contain. Cover is basically going to make sure that no matter what size that image is, it's going to stretch it so that it covers the entire slider width. So if the dimensions aren't right, it will kind of blow up that picture and zoom in on the center a little bit so that it's shown the whole way. But if the dimensions are correct and you use the ones that I showed you before, then you want to use contain, and that will actually contain the image into the size of the slider. So I would just check both of those options and make sure one doesn't look better than the other. And then to add a new one, and you'll also, this little green button here is basically a quick save. So once you made that edit, you can go ahead and press this and that will save it. However, I didn't change anything on this, so there's nothing to save. So if you want to do the same thing and add another image to the slider, you would come back to this little top portion here, hit the add slide, and then you scroll down, you'll see all the settings are the same. You won't have to worry about any of the things up here. Basically, you'll come here, do background source, image background, select image, actually media library, and just go ahead and select an image and put it in there. And you can see what I mean. So right now this is on cover. So it has blown the image up to make sure that it fits within the limitations of the slider. And then if I go back to contain, then it'll put it right in here on the outlines. Excuse me, my Google Calendar's giving me messages. And so that will give you, you'll have a nice little preview here of the slider. And then once you're happy with that, you can save it. And I always like to open this up in a new tab so I can view it live. We'll slide through and there's your image. So that's the image under contain. So if we change this to cover and refreshed it, scroll over. You can see here now with cover, it has made sure that those gaps on the left and right are not there as they were in the previous picture. Okay. And so again, if that image is that 1640 by 400, I believe it was, 1640 by 600, then that image, you shouldn't lose any quality. It shouldn't have to expand onto the picture, and it should just fit in there perfectly. So whatever you use to create that, just make sure that those are the dimensions that you use. And that should about cover the revolution slider. I'm going to X out of that. Right, and then next on the list we have the testimonials page, where the testimony is adding those to the current slider. So let's see. I'm going to open up my Dropbox. so see the testimonials here. Alright, so I believe, let's see, the names on here. Okay. So it doesn't look like the images have names, so I'm not sure who to put with what, but I can show you the process of that, and if you need to change out the image, then we can do that as well. So what I'll do is I'll come here, and the first testimony, I'll go ahead and copy that. And then on our WordPress menu, I'll go to the testimonial section. If you click that, it brings up the list of what we have here, which is obviously only one. So if you wanted to edit a current testimonial, then you would use the edit tool, but we're adding a new one, so I will add a new testimonial. Right. I'm actually going to go back real quick and look at this. Perfect. Alright, so you can see how it's set up here. Go back to add a new one. Alright, so adding a new testimonial, you will, the title will be the name of the person providing the testimonial. And you will add the text here. So what I'll do is I'll just take that, edit it out, scroll up here, add the name, and for the image that you would use for the testimonial, we would use a set feature image right here below the title. So I'll just go ahead and download someone. So I'll do set featured image. I'll upload that image. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that and drop it. And it'll load up here. And anytime any type of, you do an image or a PDF or anything you upload into your library, it gets its own unique URL. And that URL will be any image you select, you'll see it here under the options. So you can always use that for anything you need to. Alright, so I'm going to select this featured image, add that there, and you can see she's popped up. And I'm going to publish. Let's go back to the home page. And this is actually not set up as a slider. So I'm going to check on this real quick. Alright, this is some of the extra coding. Since it was only one slider or testimonial at the time, it was not set up to automatically do the sliders. So what I will do is go ahead and change that to a slider. Testimonials. So what you'll see is whenever you add a new testimonial, such as Sonia White here, or Witch, it will start rotating. So I will do that off screen, but I did show you how to successfully add the testimonial, and I will go ahead and take care of that off screen. I'm going to pause this for just a minute and then restart the recording.